Another SmackDown is in the books, and more drama between Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre. What do you know? Go figure, right? Because these two have been combined at the hip for a while now. And it's been pretty interesting to see how this whole thing has played out. Cody beat Drew McIntyre at WrestlePalooza. Cody beat Drew McIntyre at Saturday night's main event. And people are asking the question, is Cody going to beat Drew McIntyre again? Is that where we're headed with this whole thing? Well, on SmackDown, Drew McIntyre got himself suspended by claymoring the referee, who happened to be the referee for their match at Saturday night's main event. Drew has said all along he feels like he's being screwed in this whole thing. And, well, he took it a step too far. Kicked the referee in the face. Nick Aldis suspends Drew McIntyre. And now we've got to figure out where we go from here. But Cody made it very clear in his opening promo on the show that he was done with Drew McIntyre, and how Drew was basically the most self-sabotaging individual in the history of professional wrestling. Well, that tells you that Cody's not done with Drew McIntyre, and Drew coming out at the end tells you that they are not done. They are going to keep this thing going. And we mentioned previously, this match was rumored to be the original plan for Survivor Series before the Jacob Fatu injury kept him out of what would have been a match between Fatu and Drew McIntyre, it seems, at Saturday night's main event. They moved up Cody and Drew, and now it has to be a situation where they seem to be hitting it, doing it again. Which I know you're asking the question, how are they going to do that if McIntyre's suspended? Well, that's the question. We got to figure out how they're going to get around this whole suspension thing, which we've seen before with Drew. Go back to last year, we've seen kind of a very similar angle play out where it is the frustration has boiled over to the point to where Drew McIntyre is doing things that can get him suspended by WWE officials. But he still has the same goal, and that's to take the championship from Cody Rhodes. Is it going to happen? I think so. And I can't believe I'm actually saying that, because time and time again, you can say that, well, Cody has been able to find a way to beat Drew McIntyre in multiple occasions now. Again, pretty much straight up at WrestlePalooza, even though Drew can have the claim as a heel. There were reasons why he lost that match. Of course, at Saturday night's main event, same situation. Cody uses the title that affects the finish in that match. The referee doesn't see it because he's down, so Drew gets screwed again. And even the thing where we're talking about Cody hitting Drew in the face with the belt in that impromptu SmackDown match that went about 5 minutes, and I thought made Cody look like a fool. A lot of people seem to be fine with it. I just didn't like the ending. I thought it was terrible. But if this is where we're headed, then it's okay, because they are still building the story week after week that Drew McIntyre is getting screwed here. Now, it's a weird way to play it, because Drew McIntyre is the heel. He's not the babyface. He's not the guy that necessarily is being put in the position that fans are going to cheer everything he does. But maybe that's the eventual payoff here, is that we're going to get some fantastic double turn between Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes. I'm still of the belief, despite them planting all these seeds with Cody, that they are not going to turn Cody anytime soon. And the only way they would turn Cody anytime soon is that if you have an ironclad guarantee that the final boss, The Rock, is going to come back and somehow be in this story for more than just 15 minutes, then maybe you can have that idea and be okay with the fact that we're going to turn Cody because we've got The Rock there, right? But you guys know we can't count on that at all, because we couldn't count on it earlier this year with the John Cena turn, and that just can't be something right now that I have any confidence in happening. So it does bring us back to the start. What the hell are they going to do then with this whole situation? Because if Drew McIntyre is suspended, remember, suspended, then there are ways to get out of that. And you would have to think that somehow we're going to have some sort of stipulation added to the next match between Cody and Drew, which, for my money right now, I would have to think is going to take place at Survivor Series. There are people saying, well, that's not going to happen because Cody, or for Drew, is going off and filming this movie and all that. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think that's happening next year. So they can absolutely go back to this match, and with that playing out the way that it did, both on SmackDown and afterwards, if you saw the video where it's Nick Aldis and Drew McIntyre and profanities flying everywhere, you know that they are, again, setting up something that's going to have a short-term payoff here, and I would have to think that comes at Survivor Series. We've still got 3 weeks to go, but that seems to be where we're headed, because otherwise, why have Cody drop, Drew McIntyre's name into his promo to start things off and say that he's done with him and then take some cheap shots at him and then have McIntyre play into the finish of Cody's match with Aleister Black, we're clearly headed towards some sort of tag team match, you would think, with Cody and Damian Priest against Drew McIntyre and Aleister Black. But again, if Drew's suspended, how the hell are we going to do that, right? That's the question. So I just think we've reached a point now. And I say this with confidence, but maybe not as much confidence as I should. Drew McIntyre has to win this championship from Cody Rhodes if they have another match, right? We thought maybe they'd take the risk of doing it at WrestlePalooza. That didn't happen. Thought maybe they'd do it finally at Saturday night's main event. That didn't happen. You knew it wasn't going to happen when they came out and would start off the show. If they'd have been the main event, then my antenna would have went up a little bit to be like, okay, well, hang on. Maybe we're going to get a title change here. Wasn't going to happen in the opener. And so, if that is the plan, if we're going to somehow get around this stipulation or get around this suspension, and maybe that adds the stipulation, I've seen some people pitching the idea of, let's say, career versus title. This is it for Drew McIntyre. Either, hey, I win the title or I'm done with WWE. He's already suspended. What does he have to lose, right? So you could do something like that, I suppose. I've seen some people say, well, you just do it, put these guys in War Games. I don't think so. We can't extend this beyond Survivor Series. There has to be a payoff between Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre. If we're doing this again, it's got to happen at Survivor Series. You can't keep dragging this out because that ties into another thing with this match, if they're going to do it. Are we really still that interested in seeing Drew McIntyre win the title from Cody Rhodes? I don't know that everyone is going to just say an emphatic yes to that, because I think some people are just saying this has gone on basically too long at this point, and even if we get the payoff of Drew winning, it feels like there has been so much to get to that point that I'm basically exhausted, and I don't even care as much as I would have had they done it, let's say, a month or so ago, or even, again, a couple weeks ago. So that's, to me, is maybe the more interesting thing, because I think they're putting Drew in somewhat of a very sympathetic situation here, and maybe that's the plan, right? It's because somehow we're going to get Drew beating Cody Rhodes, and that will, I think, in a certain sense, you're going to have people cheering Drew McIntyre if that happens at Petco Park in San Diego on November the 29th at Survivor Series, if that is the plan. But, again, I don't know how many people at this point, if they are just still completely invested in this Drew McIntyre arc here to become the champion, because we've seen this so many times. We feel like we've seen the same thing play out with Drew and Cody over the past couple months, that it's really taken down my enthusiasm for this. Now, the execution is everything. They could still get us back there, right? If you execute it well, then maybe it is a situation where it still pays off. But I'm not sold on that being the case. I cannot imagine them at this point having another singles match between Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre not walking out as the undisputed WWE champion. If that happens, and he does not walk out as the champion, then it's time to just completely, in my mind, write off Drew McIntyre as a top champion type guy in WWE, because this is going to reach kind of a ridiculous level if he loses again to Cody Rhodes. Now, if he gets screwed out of the title somehow, and like I said, if there is, if there are some sort of outside shenanigans involved, and then maybe Cody turns and all that. I'm not there yet on the Cody turn. Like I said, unless it is doing it at the highest of levels, which to me means having The Rock somehow involved, because that's going to tie into the story you told at the start with Cody earlier this year, and then all these little things along the way, you could go back and make it make sense from a story standpoint. Without it, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm sold on the idea. Of course, we've also talked about the eventual match we're going to get between Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton, but who knows when that's going to be at this point. But maybe that ties into it, right? Orton's just kind of mysteriously disappeared now throughout this whole thing. And so there's still some things you can tie into it to where logically the story would work. But my bigger concern here is that you're going through all of this with Drew McIntyre. And if you're doing it to simply have him lose again to Cody Rhodes, when he's been beaten time and time again now in this kind of situation, and I know it can be like, well, he's been screwed time and time again. Understood. But he's also been beaten time and time again. And they can go hand in hand here based on how they're doing this. And so I just think if they're setting this whole thing up and they're doing it the way they have right now, they are at least, I think, sort of making me anticipate that means Drew is going to finally get his. And if that was the original plan, Drew McIntyre versus Cody Rhodes at Survivor Series, then I almost believe that the original plan was to have Drew win the title, because that's a big match. You're putting one-on-one in a stadium-type show, and knowing what we knew coming out of WrestlePalooza and how they were going to tell the story, maybe the Saturday night's main event thing was just something that was a necessity based on the Fatu injury, right? So, I am a little bit more confident that Drew McIntyre is actually about to dethrone Cody Rhodes as the undisputed WWE champion. But I'm not entirely convinced just yet, right? And I think that's what we're going to see play out over the next couple weeks. Because remember, too, it seemed like Drew McIntyre was teased to be in this John Cena Last Time Is Now tournament. And he was one of the people that was in the video package when Cena announced it at Saturday night's main event to make you think that McIntyre was going to be in there. So there's a lot to work with here, and maybe he still is in the tournament. If he's in the tournament, then I'm going to believe maybe he's not getting the shot at Cody again, and maybe he is done with Cody, but everything on SmackDown told us he's not, because why would he be? That's his whole goal, is to finally be the champion again, and he's doing all this because of that. He's going to these links. He's kicking referees in the face because he wants to be champion again, and he doesn't care what the consequences are. Well, now he finds himself in a bit of an interesting spot. He's, again, suspended, and so how's he going to get out of it? What's he going to propose to Nick Aldis? Everything Drew McIntyre is saying makes me want to root for Drew McIntyre. Is that what they're trying to do? Hopefully, because if not, they've got the story backwards. We're going to find out. What do you guys think? Is Drew McIntyre going to finally beat Cody Rhodes for the undisputed WWE title? Should he beat Cody Rhodes for the title? Or do we really think these guys are done with each other? Because I can't imagine the way they're telling the story that they're done just yet. Always appreciate your feedback. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Leave your comments on what you think is going to happen next with Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes, and will McIntyre finally regain the undisputed WWE title?